Hello learners, we'll start the next lesson on climate fiction. The use of scientific data to create plausible climate scenarios in fiction. So scientific plausibility in fiction worlds, the examples are Kim Stanley Robinson's The Ministry of the Future and Margaret Atwood's Oryx and Crake. So there's a lot of scientific data in these, the experimentation with genes, the attempt to create new species by experimenting with genes. So this kinds of gives plausibility to climate scenes in these novels. Climate models and environmental data. Climate fiction often incorporates specific scientific projections related to temperature rise, sea level rise, and economic ecosystem collapse. So all these things are very useful in climate fiction, where certain models and certain environmental data is used, and it makes the work more believable, more plausible, and the information makes the text better at communicating the truth to the readers. For example, Nathaniel Rich's Odds Against Tomorrow 2013 extrapolates from real research on extreme weather patterns, and environmental feedback loops are there, and shows how environmental damage leads to escalating and self-reinforcing consequence. So these are vicious cycles which are called feedback loops, which are set into motion by damaging or destroying the earth. What is the influence of climate fiction on public understanding of climate science? As we discussed earlier in another lesson, that there is something called hard science fiction and soft science fiction. So hard science fiction may not be everybody's cup of tea. Maybe everybody does not understand all those things about chemical bonding and about gases, but soft science fiction it has concepts that are easy to understand. So climate fiction brings that soft science into consideration, and helps the public to understand, by bringing that material that is easily understood and using it in stories. So example is Barbara Kingsolver's Flight Behavior. So we learn a lot about the butterfly species in this book. There is no hard science in it. There are some basic concepts, and she has used data about the breeding seasons of these butterflies, about the journeys that they undertake for survival, about the biodiversity losses, the flooding in the areas in Mexico, which was the dwelling place of these butterflies, and they had to in great masses try to find some other place to survive. So climate science and data has been used, but it's not so hard that one cannot understand. And when one can understand things, then it develops empathy and emotional connection. And the Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower is a good example of this, how science facts have been used, but they are put into a story and they are made accessible to the public to understand the science as well as the impact of climate change. The understanding and the education with science facts, with climate science, it influences public discourse and policy awareness. And science fiction is the channel through which it reaches the public. So climate fiction and science fiction, somehow they move side by side, or one contains the other. So many movies which are based on a combination of the two, they are extremely entertaining, and they are crowd pullers. Such movies, they have a certain kind of novelty in them. So we have so many films in Hollywood, about the robots taking over the world, and the semi-human species being created through, experimenting with genes. So fostering climate literary by combining entertainment with education, climate fiction fosters a form of climate literary. So why are climate fiction films so interesting? Because the intrigue and the adventure and the newness is there. They are different from any social or domestic stories. The canvas is always very large in climate films, and so nature most of the time has a voice. So this form of climate literary takes shape when science enters this discourse of literature. So here is a video on Philip K. Dick, 1928 to 1982, was an American science fiction writer and novelist. His fiction is futuristic and makes us question our present role as agents of climate change in the context of our slavery to technology and industrialization. So I would like to thank YouTube for this video and the video before this, which helps to give importance and relevance to climate fiction writing, which is turned into films, and that reaches the public more easily than books on cold science.
Between the 50s and the 80s, he wrote an astonishing 41 novels and about 120 short stories. But like so many literary geniuses before him, Philip K. Dick passed away in relative obscurity, missing the ways in which his work revolutionized science fiction literature and cinema. Blade Runner was the first movie to come out of one of his books. It would be almost 10 years until Total Recall. The success of Paul Verhoeven's film spurred on some adaptations, and the echoes of his ideas have lived on seemingly unrelated movies.
In other words, it's a common theme in my writing that a dark-haired girl shows up at the door of the protagonist and tells him that his world is delusional, that there's something false about it.
In recent years, there has been an explosion of Philip K. Dick adaptations, some more successful than others. Big budget and low budget, American, British or Asian, on film or broadcast on television.
But why?
While his predictions of flying cars and space travel were a little off the mark, the ways in which he questioned the nature of reality have never been more relevant.
Get ready for the big surprise. You, not you. You're me.
But this is not your face.
No shit.
It's a new day. The sun rises in the east.
There's a running theme of paranoia in Dick's work that matches a growing unrest in our society, a disillusionment with government and technology. In 2017, video games can simulate our world with increasing accuracy.
Then come to Recall Incorporated, where you can buy the memory of your ideal vacation cheaper, safer, and better than the real thing. So don't let life pass you by.
With the internet, we can lead multiple lives online, individually curating our personality for different social media websites.
He looks, does he not, like a constantly shifting vague blur and nothing more, am I right?
Respected figures like Stephen Hawking are claiming that the technologies that have improved our lives
We're so happy you found us.
might eventually destroy us. There's a general unease and mistrust that is fueling a rampant interest in conspiracy theories.
500 years ago, everybody knew the Earth was flat, and 15 minutes ago, you knew that people were alone on this planet.
We seem to be looking for any inkling that will confirm the fear that we're living a carefully constructed lie. And Philip K. Dick's work scratches that itch.
We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs.
Well, maybe we're in a simulation right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously.
So, when we saw this description of Philip K. Dick's science fiction books, science fiction novels, we see that he is futuristic in his writing. He talks about technology and industrialization taking over, in the sense that even reality is computer programmed, which seems very sinister and very frightening. But science fiction works, and climate fiction, they work in this way to make us aware of what is the tipping point, what are the future scenes or scenarios out of the present climate impacts. Literary techniques in climate fiction. So, climate fiction uses imagery, symbolism, metaphor, etc. in depicting environmental degradation. Imagery helps readers to visualize the impacts of climate change. So, imagery can be images related to hearing, to vision, to tasting, to using the sense of smell or sense of touch. So, all these images which are related to the human senses, they make the impact of climate change very real. Symbolism, it represents broader themes related to climate change. So, symbolism is also very important, because climate fiction is often multi-layered and multifaceted, and symbolism adds meaning and gravity to the issues. Metaphors enhance the emotional weight of a climate fiction narrative. So, metaphors also work in that way, that they sort of add more meaning and dimension to the complex topic of climate change. The narrative structures of climate fiction may be linear or non-linear timelines in climate fiction. So, they can be linear or non-linear. Linear timelines, they are, sort of, they make the novel easier to follow and understand, because there is a clear cause and effect relationship illustrating human action leading to specific environmental consequences. But it can be much more complicated than that if one thinks on a larger canvas. If the novel has a larger canvas to show that Earth climate, and the Earth is much older than human beings. So, that brings in complications, and so non-linear timelines come in, and they make the climate fiction narratives very complex, and they juxtapose the past, the present and the future. So, this non-linear timelines actually try to deal with several dimensions of time, switching on between the past, present and future. And this reminds me of this science fiction work, but there are ideas of climate fiction in it also, which we just discussed in one of the previous lessons, and we saw the movie too, of the Time Machine. So here it is a non-linear timeline because he travels both into the past and the future. Flashback and foreshadowing, it is used to reveal critical backstory to hint at potential future crisis. So flashback is there, foreshadowing is there, where you have to have a critical backstory to hint at the future part of the story or the future disaster. So flashbacks are used and foreshadowing is used. Characterization also is very strong and very significant in climate fiction. Human and non-human entities are portrayed, and their relationships to human beings and to other elements of nature also are portrayed. So an ordinary romantic novel or a novel of adventure, maybe a detective novel, would just focus on a human character, but a climate fiction novel will also introduce non-human characters, and so it has as its objective entire nature, and the essence is the unity and harmony between man and nature. Therefore, non-human characters are also important. Environmental storytelling techniques. Multi-sensory description of climate impact. There is emotional resonance, there are symbolic environments, there are dynamic interactions, there are multi-sensory descriptions using a lot of figurative devices. So environmental storytelling uses a lot of inventive and innovative techniques. And there are many challenges also when writing climate fiction. We know that science is just facts, and one has to deal with facts while dealing with the fantastic part of a story. So one has to maintain a certain kind of balance. So one has to balance scientific accuracy with storytelling. So research and understanding is needed, a creative interpretation of those hard, cold science facts that is needed. There's a plot versus science, and there is reader accessibility. So all in all, it cannot be too difficult as climate fiction so that the reader cannot understand the science behind it. The science has to be rendered in a way that it is accessible, and the moral and the message has to be there to save the environment. So this has to be there in climate fiction, and since there are so many numerous issues which are multidimensional and which are complex, climate fiction writers have to face many challenges. Also, there are challenges related to government and politics. So climate change issues are a lot in controversy with existing government policies. So they have to bring the balance to bring the readers to their books, but also that their books may be able to go out and create some awareness and educate people. So it's a form of activism also. And really, climate fiction is, there are many things that need to be balanced, and the science that is used, the science fact, they have to be very clear and they have to be very accurate. So these are the challenges of writing climate fiction. Too many disaster tropes in fiction can sort of hinder the effect of the message, because climate fiction also gives a message of hope and redressal, offers resolution, so it cannot just end in darkness. So too many disaster tropes, cliched characters, overused settings, too much focus on the storytelling These things have to be balanced out in climate fiction. These things might work in fantasy or adventure fiction, but climate fiction, the focus is climate and weather. So one has to be careful about maintaining a balance between those dark and negative outcomes and the ideas of hope and resolution, so that people may be inspired to work to undo the impacts of climate change. As I just said, they have to sort of limit the darkness and pessimism so as not to absolutely blot out any hope for redemption. So this balance is achieved by the tone of the narrative, by the focus on agency and action, by the complexity of response, by future possibilities. All in all, the climate fiction has to deal with things in a matter of clarity, and even if the issues are complex, the science fiction writer has to simplify things so that the readers may be inspired to take action. So if they cannot understand, or if they are overwhelmed by depressing scenes or complicated science, then the objective of inspiring them to take action, that would fail. What is the impact and influence of climate fiction? It has led to critical acclaim and debate. Readers have been engaged to climate fiction, and they have been inspired to take action. And climate fiction is growing popular day by day because it takes in its reach even non-human subjects. So there are many books right now, more than ever before, that are coming about, that deal or focus with single animals or single birds. A story which might tell you about the loss of habitat or the suffering of some non-human entity. But the way the climate fiction writer engages with it, one understands that there is some kind of exploitation, loss of biodiversity, and this being, this non-human creature is important, and its story is important, its life is important. So there are many stories which may not carry the name of climate fiction, but they deal with specific birds as the main characters, or dogs or bears. The inclusion of non-human creatures, non-human living beings, gives a new feel in climate fiction, and it sorts of wins over the readers, because there is a certain tenderness and a softness of feeling in many people for animals and birds. How does climate fiction contribute to climate debates in academic and political spheres? It does so through academic discourse, by influencing policy discussions, by highlighting ethical dimensions, and also by inspiring activism. So all these things tell us about the power of climate fiction and the way it can hope to reduce the impact of climate change. So when we talk of climate activism, a lot of it has arisen because of climate fiction writing. Young people have learned a lot from climate fiction books. Perhaps they did not specifically study any science in their in their high schools, any science at a very high level. But when they read climate fiction, the awareness is global. It tells you so much about weather and climate, and so many things are realized that maybe more science should have been studied. So it has a very big role in education and public policy discussions. And as we discuss again and again, that education is important, and climate education at school level is important. That helps community engagement also, and that helps in influencing public policy also. There are many climate stories, and there is this collection of stories titled Loosed Upon the World, an anthology of climate stories. So it consists of very powerful stories based on climate. And I said earlier also that climate stories need not only deal with earthquakes and tsunamis. They can deal with issues related to food, or they can deal with political issues also. They can deal with human relationships, and they can deal with individual animals. So in this collection of stories, there are stories about birds, about the protagonist trying to save an owl. So there are several stories here. The Myth of Rain by Shannon McGuire, Time Capsule Found on the Dead Planet by Margaret Atwood. So these are some stories. The Myth of Rain, it's an important story. It tells us about industrialization and business establishments that are out to destroy the rainforest, the green cover on the earth, because they have to get more profit by having more resorts and hotels built. So they take this idea of climate change as something very unimportant, as having no reality. So Shannon McGuire, the author of this story, says that all we could do was save what little we could put our hands on. They're actually trying to save a she-owl, because the forest will soon be cut down, and they are trying to save some small species, whatever they can find. They're trying to save those worms and insects. At least some biodiversity can be saved. So he says all we could do was save what little we could put our hands on, and remember the things we had to leave behind. We owed the world, we had destroyed that at least. We owed it so much more. Maybe someday our children would see owls in the world again. So in this story, the protagonist is trying to save a she-owl, and he has all the tools and the electronic equipment which helps him to hang on the tree, and he tries to pull the owl out of its hole. And but the owl on the third day manages to escape and fly far away, and he is not able to save the owl, though as one of the environmentalists, he has the best intentions. They are only trying to save the species, but the owl does not understand that, and she rather injures him and flies away. So on one sense, this story brings to light that nature is self-supporting. A little bit of help will help itself to heal, and it's something that it is larger than human beings. So though these people were well-meaning, the nature has its own independence. It should not and cannot come under control of human beings. So there's another prose piece, Time Capsule Found on the Dead Planet by Margaret Atwood. This is a futuristic piece, and it tells about how from a stone age human beings started minting money and getting gold, and gradually they from their relationship with nature, which was simple and uncomplicated, they become rich and they become arrogant, and destructive. So eventually the earth is turned into a desert, and there's the capsule found on the dead planet which talks about this development of humanity. So let me quote from the book and from this essay by Margaret Atwood. Some of our wise men turned to the contemplation of deserts. A stone in the sand in the setting sun could be very beautiful, they said. Deserts were tidy because there were no weeds in them, nothing that crawled. Stay in the desert long enough and you could apprehend the absolute. The number 0 was holy. So the desert that the earth is, they try to find beauty in that, and that is very ironic because now they have started to consider the number 0 or emptiness or absence as important. So the number 0 becomes holy. So this is very ironic. So in all these lessons we discussed climate fiction. Climate fiction is very important in addressing climate change because it transfers scientific facts and makes them accessible. So let's close this lesson for now. We'll meet in the next lesson and we will discuss climate issues in literature further. Thank you.